The Senate will come to order. Senators will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Berger. Billinger. Boyer. Bowers. Braun. Denning. Dahl. Estes. Fauskado. Francisco. Givens. Goddard. Haley. Hardy. Hawk. Hensley. Hildebrand. Holland. Kirshen. Longbine. Lynn. Masterson. McGinn. Miller. Olson. Peterson. Petty. Pyle. Rucker. Skubal. Solentrop. Sykes. Taylor. Thompson. Tyson. Wagle. Ware. Wilborn.
Senators and their guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to the chaplain.
Please join me. Lord, you gave Moses the responsibility to lead your people toward a much better way of life. Moses was to lead them into a life exemplified by your blessings. Realizing the gravity of the calling on his life, in Exodus chapter 33, verse 15, he said he would not go if you didn't go with him. In like manner, Lord, you've given us the responsibility to lead your people into better ways of life. We need your guidance, but we also need the promising assurance that you'll go with us. As we tackle the various challenges ahead, give us the confidence you gave to Moses. Confirmation of your presence will be substantiated by showing us your supernatural results. Lord, when all is said and done, let it be said without a doubt that God was in this house. Thank you for your blessing us, for the evidence of your presence. In the name of our Lord and Savior, in the name of our God with us, amen and amen.
Please continue standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a special guest visiting us today. I'd like to call your attention to the former Utah Senate President, Wayne Niederhauser, who is on my left, backed by the Sergeant of Arms. Welcome, Senator. On a point of personal privilege, the chair recognizes the senator from Shawnee, Senator Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Today we're recognizing the Kansas Volunteer Commission, which here is one of the 52 state service commissions nationwide. It is a program operated by the Kansas State Department of Education. Commissioners are appointed by the governor, and their mission is to empower all Kansans to meet community needs through service. The Kansas Volunteer Commission also manages the $1.4 million in the AmeriCorps Kansas portfolio, which funds 8 programs in our state. Mentor Kansas is a statewide mentoring partnership connecting existing mentoring programs, believing every young person deserves caring and supportive relationships. The Commission supports volunteer and mentor professionals through training, technical assistance, and funding opportunities. The Civic Engagement Initiative, and we've heard a lot of conversation about civic engagement. It is an initiative of the Kansas State Department of Education and is also one of the Commission's priorities. I would like to introduce 6 individuals who are in our VIP section today. First, Jessica Noble. Jessica, if you'd please stand. She's the Executive Director of the Kansas Volunteer Commission. Meg Pearson, Deputy Director of the Kansas Volunteer Commission. Paula Smith, Mentor Kansas Director. Deborah Tucker, who is a commissioner from Grantville, Kansas. Brianna Monk, who is commissioner from Derby, Kansas. And then, of course, Carolyn Campbell, who is a commissioner from Topeka, Kansas. Let's please recognize these individuals for their work.
Welcome to the Kansas Senate. Thank you for the important work that you do each and every day. Introduction of original motions and Senate resolutions. The clerk will read.
Senate Resolution 1754 by Senators Wagle and others, a resolution recognizing the Wichita Police Department's homeless outreach team for its tremendous accomplishments and continuous efforts in reducing chronic homelessness in Wichita.
The chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick County, President Wagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think rather than having the resolution read, I'd just like to explain what it is. We were going to have guests from the Wichita Police Department over here tomorrow, and since we're going to be off tomorrow, we decided to just carry this resolution for them today and send it back to Wichita. This is a resolution honoring the Wichita Police Department's homeless outreach team, which was developed as a result of homeless calls coming in. They more than doubled between the years 2009 and 2011. And the police department decided to assign police with the task of, rather than arresting people for loitering, help them find assistance for whatever their needs are. And since 2013, the team has experienced resounding success. They've helped more than 1,000 people move into transitional housing. They've helped more than 600 people reunite with family members for support. They've helped more than 500 people find shelter. They've helped divert more than 700 non-victim crime in lieu of services, and more than 3,000 times helped connect homeless individuals with services and providers. It's a very, very successful program. We'd like to honor them with the passage of this resolution. With that, I'd like to defer from the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Faust-Godot, who wanted to say a word about the resolution.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Faust-Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I appreciate the words from the President of the Senate, Senator Susan Wagle. As a Wichitan, the Wichita Police Department, some of the outreach work that they do for the homeless, especially in our downtown area, it's just fantastic, just fabulous. Our Wichita City Channel 7 shows some of the work that they do when they interact with the homeless individuals in Wichita. And the police department, their outreach services has just been wonderful, helping people have a better life. And so appreciate you allowing me to say a few words. Thank you so much, Mr. Vice President.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Wagle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a wonderful example of criminal justice reform and helping people without passing a bill here in the legislature. With that, I'd move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and the Senate Resolution 1754 be adopted by a voice vote.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The Senate will be at ease for a moment while we process the remaining bills that we need to introduce. Chair recognizes Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Solentrop.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just want to take a moment today to thank everyone here in the chamber, my colleagues, my friends, on the cards, letters, flowers, texts, emails, and everything on the passing of my mother. Got a lot of questions by my family because we had contributions from the Kansas beer wholesalers to the Senate Democratic Caucus. And they're very appreciative. I hope everybody's received the thank yous and so forth. And I think it's a tribute to all of our parents that went before us, people that have seen hard times and wanted to provide a better life for us. So again, on behalf of my family, I want to thank everyone very much. Thank you.
The Senate will come to order. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 360 by Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning sales taxation. Senate Bill 361 by Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning public employee and professional employee organizations. Senate Bill 362 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning fireworks. Senate Bill 363 by Committee on Ways and Means, an act concerning health and healthcare. Senate Bill 364 by Committee on Ways and Means, an act concerning health and healthcare. Senate Bill 365 by Committee on Ways and Means, an act concerning the Kansas Board of Barbering. Senate Bill 366 by Committee on Commerce, an act concerning occupational regulation.
This constitutes introduction of Senate Bill 360 through Senate Bill 366. Please note reference of bills on pages 1 and 2 of the calendar. Correction and approval of the journal. Before recessing, are there announcements? Senator from Ford, Senator Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Capitol Commission Bible Study will not meet tomorrow. Is rescheduled for February 12th at 7 a.m. And then Fed and State will have a confirmation hearing on Friday, 10:30 in room 144 South. Thank you, sir.
Are there additional announcements? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
Senate Transportation will not be meeting tomorrow. However, we will be meeting on Monday morning. The bill scheduled for tomorrow will probably be posted for Monday. Thank you.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn.
Thank you. The Go Red for Women Day was supposed to be tomorrow. It will be Thursday, so wear your red ties, your red jackets, or your red dresses. Thursday. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senate Financial Institutions and Insurance will go ahead and have our meeting on Thursday. We canceled our meeting tomorrow, and we'll push them bills off till next week. We appreciate the chiefs giving us this extra day off and their big wins. So, thank you.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilburn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The Senate Judiciary Committee will not meet Thursday. We'll push those bills forward to next week, and we will meet Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senate Commerce will be meeting on Thursday, and we're going to get a briefing by Dr. Greg Mosier, who is president of Kansas City, Kansas Community College. And I had spent some time out there over the summer looking at their workforce solutions, and I think when you hear what he has to say, you will be excited about what's happening there at that institution. So we are meeting 8:30 sharp.
Senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Ethics, Elections, and Local Government, no meeting tomorrow. Meeting's been canceled, but the agenda has been moved to Friday. It's Senate Bill 299, and we also plan on working two bills that are in the calendar. That's 142 South at 9:30. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Are there additional announcements? Seeing none, the chair recognizes Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Immediately upon recess, Senate Republicans will be going to our normal room, 548 South, to caucus on Senate Bill 157.
Chair recognizes Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Upon recess, the Senate Democrats will caucus in our normal room, 287 North, on Senate Bills 157 and 258.
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate recess to the sound of the gavel.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The Senate is recessed. The Senate will come to order. The chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The chair appoints the senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
Good afternoon. The Senate, having resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole, will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We'll now turn our attention to Senate Bill 157. The chair recognizes the senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn, to explain the bill and to adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report, the complete committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Senate Bill 157 creates a presumption of equal parenting time and joint legal custody between two parents while a domestic action is pending. By setting a rebuttable presumption for equitable division of parenting time, Senate Bill 157 is consistent with the traditional values of many people that requested this bill. You'll note at the top of the bill, many of the senators in this room from both sides of the aisle signed on to this bill and recognized the issue before them. Senate Bill 157 was, as amended, would amend the revised Kansas Family Code statute governing temporary parenting plans to add the following two presumptions. One, if there's a presumption that documentation or other information by a parent that would support a finding of good cause that domestic abuse has occurred or is occurring, there would be a presumption that it is not in the best interest of the child for the parents to have temporary joint legal custody and share equally in parenting. And two, in making an order for temporary parenting plan, there would be a presumption it is in the best interest of the child for fit, willing, and able parents to have temporary joint legal custody and share equal parenting time. In committee, as you can see by the bill brief, there were a number of proponents. Approximately 20 individuals told their personal stories either by written or oral communication. The Senate Committee on Judiciary hearing Senator Faust-Godot, representatives of the Dad's Care 2 Project, Father's Right Movement, Kansas Family Preservation Coalition, and the National Parents Organization, and a number of others testified in favor of this proposed piece of legislation. The opponents included Johnson County District Court Judge, two attorneys, a psychologist, an attorney, law professor, representative of the Kansas Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence, and the Kansas District Judges Association, as opposed to other written testimony, opposed this legislation. Because of the opposition, amendments were made to the bill. And you can look on page, excuse me, I should have had that ready. On page 1 of the bill, 157, lies before you the amended version that was put forth before us. The key here is that this is purely for the temporary parenting plan, means an agreement, an order issued defining the legal custody at the time of the filing until a permanent plan has been developed. That does not mean that it cannot be altered if there is substantial evidence to show that there are any of those abuses that I have aforementioned. I might add that 19 states in the United States have varying degrees of this bill, not identical to this bill, but to varying degrees. There are 20 other states that have bills before their legislature considering this type of movement. Madam Chairman, with that, I do have an amendment.
Have you turned it in?
I have.
And what's that number?
It is RS 2566.
Okay, we'll give the body a moment to collect those. Do you want to explain your amendment or have it read?
I will explain the amendment. It is purely a technical amendment, striking certain lines, moving the dates from 2018, inserting the dates 2019 on two different spots.
Are there questions on the amendment? Senator Miller from Shawnee.
Yeah. Lamps right in the way.
It is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just rise to say that I neglected to share with my caucus that the chairman had advised me of this amendment, and I should have mentioned that to my caucus, but I would just say it is a friendly amendment to clean up the language because it's a carryover bill.
Are there additional questions on the amendment? Seeing none, you may move your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before I open it up for questions or other potential amendments, I do want to add that clearly in the bill states that the judges still have prerogative. There is still ample opportunity to exercise the judgment prerogative, to make decisions based upon the facts before the judge. This just simply gives a presumptive assumption that of equal parenting. I now stand for questions.
Are there additional questions for the senator? Senator Miller from Shawnee County.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask carrier of the bill would stand for a question or two, and I would, in that regard, I would draw the body's attention to page 2, line 20, where we have use of the word fit. And I would ask if fit is somewhere defined.
Madam Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, it is, I do not see a definition of fit. I can turn to a revisor here just a second.
Senator from McPherson.
Yes, as I speculated, it is not defined in statute, but it is a term of convention that is used quite frequently.
Senator Miller from Shawnee County.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would say that this question was not raised by me, but however, the disability community, wondering if somehow we had two parents that were disabled, if somehow there would be a finding that they were not fit, or even if one of them was not fit, and that somehow shifted the presumptions. And again, I would put that in the form of a question. Was this intended to address that situation?
Senator from McPherson, Senator
Madam
Wilborn.
Chairman, it is my estimation that it is a decision that can be made by the court. The judge has that prerogative to make that determination.
Senator from Shawnee, Senator
Thank
Miller.
you. I appreciate that response, and that is their concern. That's something that the judge would consider in making a decision of custody, even though it's temporary. My next question, Madam Chair, would be relative to the language on page 1, line 15, where permanent parenting plan is defined. And my question for the carrier of the bill is, what significance is that definition doing in there, and that I don't find that term used anywhere in the bill, that I'm wondering why it's being defined?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
My first off the top head remark would be to differentiate it from the temporary plan, as opposed, meaning it's the next plan, it is the permanent plan in place.
Senator from Shawnee, Senator
And I
Miller.
might just say in response, well, if temporary parenting plan is defined, which it is, I don't know why we have to differentiate anything else with a defined term, but that's just comment. As to my comments about the bill, Madam Chair, first I want to make it very clear that I have long been an advocate, long ago, before we even had joint custody in the state of Kansas, for the idea of joint custody. And while I'm biased, I happen to think that a dad is just as qualified to raise their children as a mom. And I would go on to say there are a lot of moms and a lot of dads, neither of which is qualified. Nonetheless, it is the world we live in. But I am not a sponsor of the bill, but I do subscribe to the underlying concept embodied in the bill. One thing I want to say for the record, however, is that the people I've been hearing from advocating this bill are expecting that they're getting a lot more from the bill than they're getting. If you've practiced law in this field, and I gave it up probably 30 years ago because I hated it so much, you could never win, no matter which side you represented, and there was never, I can't remember when I had a contested divorce where either side was very happy with the outcome. What I predict is that about a year after this bill goes into effect, we will enjoy a multitude of complaints about its application. Because on the one hand, again, as I said, I agree with the concept, and it's very easy to subscribe to this concept. In the real world, these things are almost impossible to apply. When you file a divorce, and by the way, I don't have stats in front of me, but I think it's safe to say most divorces are amiable and they don't involve, contrary to popular belief, they don't involve a high degree of strife between the two parties. In those cases where they are hotly contested and there is a level of strife, one party wins a lot just by being the first one to arrive at the courthouse. Because under our statutory framework, there's a number of temporary orders that have to be issued. They have to be issued when you have disagreement at that point in the action. One of those orders is, describing it very briefly, who gets the house while the divorce is pending. And in the atypical instance, there is a house where a family is living, and upon the filing of the divorce, one of the members of that family is evicted temporarily, because where there is strife, everyone would agree it's not a healthy situation for people to continue to live together. It's not healthy for the husband, the wife, or the kids when you have a hotly contested divorce for everybody to stay in the same house. It's kind of one of those duh deals. So one person is evicted. And in the typical instance, the person that's evicted is not in a financial situation that they can go out and afford a comparable home. And they probably, in many cases, probably most all cases, they find a very inexpensive, temporary, modest accommodation. So under that circumstance, and it won't be uncommon, it'll be more likely than not, this bill does not address the question of how you apply equal time. Does that mean that the children are now going to have to sleep on the floor of the person who was evicted because they don't have a bedroom for them? Does it mean that the person who did the evicting now must vacate the home so that the other party can move in while they're enjoying equal time. On and on and on in terms of the practical application. I don't believe the proponents are going to get what they expect from this, and I think it's very unfair to them. If any of us, I would urge my colleagues to be very careful in terms of responding to them about what we've achieved by this action, because they're going to be very unhappy when they discover how little has changed. And what I mean when I say that is that, and I probably should have asked the carrier of the bill this, I will ask him this question, if I may. What happens when the judge ignores the language of this new statute?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wellborn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would speculate that he either could be questioned under peer scrutiny or maybe nothing.
Well, if I may respond.
Senator from Shawnee, Senator Miller.
In terms of scrutiny, there's a dozen waffle rooms within this bill to not do anything and say they still abided by the technical language. But my point, Madam Chair, is this. If the party seeking the application of this bill, and that is equal time, is unhappy with the initial order that they didn't get it, it is no less convenient to exercise your rights at that point than it would be to simply ride out the divorce action, having your ultimate hearing, and establishing the terms of permanent custody arrangements. There is not a hearing when the party walks into the courthouse and files the divorce and gets these temporary orders signed. There is no hearing. The other side has no opportunity to present evidence or argument. They're not even there. They get served, oftentimes unbeknownst to them that an action was even filed, they get served with all these temporary orders, and they are stuck temporarily with those orders at least until they can get a hearing. And you can have a hearing that's on the temporary orders, but it's no better than just writing out the action, having your respective attorneys establish the issues, and ones they can't establish are set for a hearing that establishes the permanent orders. And I predict that there will be, by judges, partaking of the dozen waffle rooms I mentioned here, to not sign a temporary order of equal time. I predict that most temporary orders for custody that are filed are not going to provide for equal time. And they're going to allege, as they can, some of the things in here that don't require the judge to order equal time. They're going to allege it in their initial pleadings and their initial orders, with the other party not being able to refute what may or may not be accurate. I'm going to vote for this bill because, notwithstanding the trepidation that I foresee, it's important that I prove what I just said, and that is I support equal rights for both moms and dads. And this, to me, is not so much establishing those rights as it is a mere statement that that is what I believe. But I don't want those who support this bill to be misled by me or anyone else that it does anything more than what it does. And I know we have another chamber in this body for a good reason, and that is to address some of the issues that we might have raised but not resolved. Thank you for the time, Madam Chair.
Additional questions. Senator from Shawnee, Senator Rucker.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too rise in support of the bill, but would like to make some clarifying comments in addition to those made by the Senator of Shawnee. I believe the proponents of the bill, Madam Chairman, were primarily about the business of expressing to us that temporary parenting plans setting out these various issues of residency and child visitation had a tendency, it was their belief that there was a tendency that once judges of this state issued temporary orders along these lines, that they did not have an equal chance to modify or change the order once it ultimately became permanent. And it was that initial determination by the courts with regard to parenting and equal time and residency that had a tendency to be viewed by the court in subsequent decisions dealing with the same case to keep the temporary orders in place and then to convert them to permanent orders. In the conversations that I have had with the the proponents of this bill, they expressed to me on more than one occasion that they believed that even though the court retained its discretion whether to enter into these orders or not, that were an order to be issued, they would at least like it codified that there were certain factors that could be determined, and they are set out in B1 through 4, that there be a presumption should documentation be presented of domestic abuse, that it would not be considered in the best interests of the child for such orders to be had of equal time, residency, and so on. In addition, they thought it appropriate, Madam Chairman, for the second presumption to exist, and that is, were an order to issue by the court of a temporary plan regarding parenting, that there would be a presumption that it is in the best interests of the child that both parents share equally, have joint custody as it related to parenting. The problems that the good senator from Shawnee has previously pointed out are valid as it relates to who made it to the courthouse first to file this divorce action, and the subsequent ex parte determinations that are made by the court with regard to who gets the home. All those points are relevant and pertinent to this discussion. But I do believe that the presumptions that lay in the bill, as well as the intention to continue to give courts discretion in making these determinations, are valid and worthy that this bill be passed. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Additional questions? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
No questions, Madam Chair. But just as you know, as a member of Judiciary Committee and as the chair, Senator Wilburn, Senator from McPherson, has said and has been, I think, affirmed by our ranking member, Senator Miller from Shawnee, and Senator from Shawnee, our vice chair, Senator Rucker. There seems to be a unanimity among the leadership of the Judiciary Committee that passed this bill, very well vetted last year, and all the advocacies that we've heard during the interim regarding this measure. As one of the 17 co-sponsors, certainly I'd like to thank the Senator from Cherokee for bringing it, Senator Hildebrand. I'm proud to be one of the co-sponsors, and everything that we have heard from the time it was introduced, notwithstanding some of the pleas to the contrary by a very learned bar association, but looking at what a litigious society might envelop were this bill to not be passed. I think in every one of our communities, maybe in Cloud County, certainly in Wyandotte County, we're all able to witness clearly where there have been those who have not had the benefit or the influence of two parents. Sometimes that's a condition of domesticity. Sometimes there's some other more tragic reasons. But I think every study that we'll see, if you don't use your own ears and eyes or look around your own community, will say, you'll note that the disadvantage of a child who has not had the tutelage or instruction or ongoing involvement of two concerned parents often creates that disparity that we see, leading in some ways to a level of societal decay. The sky doesn't fall because of single parents. There are many single parents in my community and maybe in yours who do exceptionally well. I look at them and applaud them all of the time. But too sadly, they're the exceptions to the rule. Single mothers in my community and have a tendency to raise their daughters, teach them to be independent, teach them to go out and get a job, don't depend on any man. They raise their daughters, and the same single mothers so often tolerate and overindulge their sons. These boys come up, and I serve, Madam Chair, as a mentor for some of them, but they come up not having that balance, that father, that male figure in their life. They look for love and respect, and sometimes they need a little discipline. And when this bill came out and I was looking at it and I was hearing what the opposition has to say, I thought of several circumstances that I see, and I go, oh, if there had just been a little balance. If fathers had had an equal opportunity to not be heir to the societal and legal discrimination that's written into our laws that presumes that only mother knows best. Only mother should provide that house or that home. If there was a support from a father or a male figure, but the law was not on dad's side. So it's a presumption. This bill, when passed, will enable the court to review, not with the automatic discrimination that's now employed, but to imagine for a moment that all things being equal, that both parents should have an equal opportunity to parent. I can't tell you how strongly I support this. I ask you again to look at your community. I ask us all to look at, where we come from and think of examples that we look and that we see and know that there's a greater awareness, a stronger commitment that we see in our children who have the benefit of two strong minds and eager hearts to see them mature. It's something I very much support, something that I've seen happen too often, to the contrary. And let us move forward with this bill, hopefully with unanimity, and give the opportunity for the shared parenting to work. Let me appreciate the advocates who brought it from a national organization and distilled it down and had it interpreted here in the state for us, and for your patience and your diligence. And I hope that we can say very clearly that we in Kansas go with the presumption that it's better to see two involved parents who start on an equal footing in the rearing of their children have as equal an opportunity to pull that forward, that we in Kansas adhere to that and support it. I support this measure, Madam Chair.
Additional questions? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Fascadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No question from the gentleman from Senator Wilborn. However, I just want to rise in strong support of the legislation of Senate Bill 157, being a co-sponsor of the legislation, testifying for the legislation. Madam Chair, in Wichita, Kansas, prior to the introduction of this legislation, Dad's Care 2 had a big town hall meeting where almost 250 African-American men attended this event who want to be active in their children's lives. And for one reason or another, they shared story after story of where they've went to court to get visitation rights. They did all the right things. Madam Chair, the president of Wichita's Dad's Care 2, he's a pastor in Wichita, highly respected. He was one that told the story that he couldn't get visitation right. He said he wanted to be there when his daughter had a cold. He wanted to know everything that she was doing. That touched my heart, Madam Chair. I do understand, and I am respectful to the attorneys that have voiced their concerns on the legislation today. However, and I know we'll have to work things out, Madam Chair, but I look at this as a major catalyst to helping those men that want to be active in their children's lives, that opportunity. And I urge the body's support for Senate Bill 157. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there additional questions? Senator Hildebrand from Cherokee County.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just obviously, as being the sponsor of this bill, I do rise in strong support of it. And I just wanted to give my appreciation to my colleagues on this side of the aisle, and especially to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for this bipartisan support of this bill. Already much has been said about the importance of and why it is. It's just to have an opportunity for both parents to have that equal time during that such a hard time for both parents and children. And I really want to thank the Judiciary Committee, the good senator from McPherson, Kansas, Chairman Wilborn, for their due diligence in working this, and Senate leadership for getting this to the floor for a vote today. And I just appreciate everybody's support and their vote for this. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Additional questions? Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, before I have a question, I love the concept of this legislation. As you get into the details, I think even in a home with two parents who are not separated, parenting time is not 50-50. So I think we're kind of putting ourselves up for failure, even though I love the intent of this legislation. But with that, I have a couple of questions.
Proceed.
Are you, if the senator could tell me what the local court rule is that for temporary orders currently?
Senator from McPherson.
Madam
Senator
Chairman, I did not hear what kind of rules?
Go ahead. It's the local court rule for temporary orders.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
We're still in doubt as to the question. Temporary, what, can you cite, Madam Chairman, could she, the good senator.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes, maybe rephrase?
I will. I am looking at, I believe that Shawnee, Johnson, and Sedgwick all have a local court rule. In Johnson County, it is Civil Court Rule number 25, and this has to do with temporary orders in this situation. And if I may read a little bit of this to clarify. In this, the parties will have joint legal custody, means the mother and the father have equal rights to involve and in the responsibility for decisions affecting their children, health, education, and welfare, and does not have any bearing on the amount of time that each parent spends with the child. Then it goes down to parenting time. Both parents shall have parenting time with the children. Times with both parents is the child's right. And then it says the current daycare and school arrangements shall not be changed absent of a written agreement. So I guess my question is the kid's best interest in factoring in as we're looking at 50-50 parenting. My next question, I guess, maybe this will be a little clearer. What does this do to the child support guidelines under the temporary order?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The only assumption that it changes the presumptive assumption to equal parenting. That's the only change that it makes. And it's still up to the judge's discretion. It's still wide open in that area. It shouldn't have a direct impact on what she's citing. The good Senator from Johnson.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do believe this will trigger the child support guidelines, and it could drastically reduce the child support because of the amount of time that they're with each parent. So again, I will be in opposition of this. I do appreciate the intent, but I think it needs more work. Thank you.
Additional questions for the Senator from McPherson. Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the carrier of the bill.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
My question deals with, I know this has been brought forward a little bit earlier about that, and you've brought it forth yourself, that this legislation deals specifically with temporary parenting plan. However, there is the definition for permanent parenting plan, and then there is a definition for legal custody. So my first question has to do with, does this change anything that's in current law dealing with legal custody?
To my
now,
knowledge,
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
I apologize, Madam Chairman. I'll look straight at you. To the best of my knowledge, it does not change those at all. And as a matter of fact, the permanent plan definition is in the statutes as it stands now.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. And would that be true, could the Senator from McPherson, would that be true then that the definition for legal custody is what's currently in law?
The answer is yes. As per the revisor, does not change.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Petty.
So
just, Wyandotte, yes.
Thank you. So just for my own knowledge, so it is it's bolded in this in the bill, and it's because it's being inserted within this legislation dealing with a temporary parenting plan, even though it's current language.
That is
Senator
correct.
from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, it was inserted in committee as an amendment.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. So it was just inserted so that there was clarification that that was current law.
That's correct, Madam Chairman.
Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Senator from Johnson, Senator Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I definitely want to thank the chairman of the Judiciary Committee for bringing this forward. Like the senator from Cherokee, I think it's a very important bill. It makes a statement, even on these temporary orders, and the way I see it, my vote when I take it today, we're making a statement saying, and this could be in a reverse role. It doesn't have to be a man. It could be the woman could be the one that the child's not placed with. But we're saying that we want these parents to be involved in their child's life, even through the toughest times when the two parents are trying to split up. I think that's what this vote makes today. I think we're making a statement here saying that we don't want anybody, if possible, to lose any time. Even though there's a bad situation happening here to the child, to the parents, we want to at least try to do everything we can to keep that relationship whole and allow the parties that need to be spending appropriate time together to do so. So I want to thank the chairman for bringing this bill and carrying it on the Senate floor and working this legislation. All the people that supported it, I want to thank them. You know, I don't have this situation, but I think it's important we recognize these situations do happen. And, you know, attorneys are expensive. People fall through the cracks. I think we're sending a message here. And so I really appreciate what the committee's done and everybody working on this bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Additional questions, Senator from Douglas, Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be pithy in my comments. I just want to rise in support of the bill on a couple occasions. Number one, I'm aware in my extended family of a couple of messy divorces where, as an outsider looking in, it was almost wondering like if children were being used as weapons from, you know, by one spouse against another. And I think just as part of the legal process itself, to establish this from the get-go, I think is important. But more importantly, I think this legislation for us today really reflects a changing and evolving of our society and roles. You know, you go back maybe 50, 60 years, you're thinking of, you know, Ward and June Cleaver. Warren was out, you know, making the money, and June was managing the home fires and raising the children. We don't have that society anymore today. We have a society where an individual, regardless of their sex, their sexual orientation, you know, they play the role of a mother, they play the role of a father. We obviously have many single-parent families where, regardless of wasn't a divorce, I mean, for whatever reason, a spouse may have died. And society expects that individual, be it man or woman, to raise that family. Because as part of that expectation, we realize that that parent, regardless of being a man or a woman, loves those children and wants to be part of their lives. And so, you know, I have a daughter, and you know, I encourage her to do whatever she wants to do, whatever profession she wants to pursue, she needs to go do that, whether it's viewed as being masculine or feminine. And I think the same way needs to apply as we look at roles of parenting. It's not a masculine or a female role to be a parent. It's just being a parent. And regardless of your sex, I think society now expects that person to play that role. So in many ways, I view this bill as, while it may be limited in its practical impact, I think it makes a statement, and more importantly, I think it really starts to knock down some long-held stereotypes that just are no longer relevant or applicable in today's society. I support the measure. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there additional questions for the senator from McPherson? Seeing none, you may close. Oh, so sorry. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As well, I don't have any questions, but I appreciate what I really hope is a change to our regulations that will be in the best interest of children. I think the best interest of children, if at all possible, is to leave them in their home. And this would easily allow their parents to leave the children at home and take turns occupying that home with their children. I also appreciate that it's gender neutral, the direction I think we should be going as we make changes. My appreciation to the work of the Judiciary Committee, particularly in adding or bringing back in all our existing definitions along with the new definitions they have added in this section of our laws.
Are there any additional questions for the senator from McPherson? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I want to thank the senators in this body for supporting and standing up and saying their part on this, particularly Ranking Member Miller for saying some thought-provoking, give us something to think about going forward, and for Vice Chairman Miller for clarity on some of these issues, and my good friend from Wyandotte County, Senator Haley, on the Senate Judiciary Committee for adding his value from his district. With that, Madam Chairman, I move that when the committee rises and report Senate Bill 157 favorable for passage.
As amended. As amended.
As amended. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Are those opposed, no? Motion carries. The chair recognizes the majority leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries.
The clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Denning, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders with Senator Bowers in the chair. Recommended, SB 157 be amended by the adoption of the committee report, be amended on the motion of Senator Wilborn, and the bill be passed as further amended.
The chair recognizes the senator from Cloud, Senator Bowers, to adopt the committee report.
I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The chair recognizes the majority leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and the following bill be advanced to final action and roll call. Senate Bill 157.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. We are now ready for final action. On this roll call, we will take the following: the consent calendar bill on page 3, Senate Bill 258, and the bill on page 4, Senate Bill 157. The clerk will read the titles.
Senate Bill 258, an act concerning the legislative decision of post-audit. SB 157, an act concerning family law.
The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Berger. Billinger. Boyer.
Senator from Sherman, can you repeat your vote, please?
Boyer. Bowers. Braun. Denning. Dahl. Estes. Faustido. Francisco. Givens. Goddard. Haley. Hardy. Hawk. Hensley. Hildebrand. Holland. Kirshen. Longbine. Lynn. Masterson. McGinn. Miller. Olson. Peterson. Petty. Pyle. Rucker. Skubal. Solentrop. Sykes. Taylor. Thompson. Tyson. Wagle. Ware. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to change their vote? Chair recognizes Senator from Johnson, Senator Boyer. Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Sherman, Senator Billinger.
Yes, I'd like change from no to aye on 157.
Any additional changes of vote? Any additional explanations of vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. "39 voting in favor and 1 opposed to Senate Bill 258, and 39 voting in favor and 1 opposed to Senate Bill 157. These measures, having received the required constitutional majority, are hereby declared passed. Messages from the House, the clerk will read.
Announcing adoption of HCR 5020, House Concurrent Resolution 5020 by Representatives Reichman, Hawkins, and Sawyer, a concurrent resolution relating to the adjournment of the House of Representatives and Senate for a period of time during the 2020 regular session of the Legislature.
This constitutes introduction of HCR 5020. At this time, I am withdrawing Senate Bill 93 from the Committee on Public Health and Welfare and referring to the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance. We will refer back to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 1614 by Senators Wagle, Kirshen, and Taylor. A concurrent resolution supporting Kansas farmers and ranchers in the Rattlesnake Creek subbasin in their ongoing effort to protect their water rights and livelihood through a collaborative solution to the region's water impairment issue that will safeguard Kansas agriculture and the economic success of Kansas farmers, ranchers, and agribusiness.
This constitutes introduction of SCR 1614. Are there announcements? Chair recognizes Senator from Estes, or Senator from Ford, Senator Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Earlier today, I made an announcement concerning confirmation, but I had the days messed up. So the confirmation hearing for Laurel Searless will be Thursday at Penn State.
Are there additional announcements? Senator from Shawnee, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. After reviewing the overwhelming responsibilities I currently hold, and out of respect for the senator from Shawnee, Senator Rucker, I respectfully decline the promotion to Vice Chair.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just announcing that some of the budget subcommittees will be working tomorrow morning, so if you have an interest, please check the calendar online tonight.
Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We were scheduled for a hearing on Senate Bill 294 tomorrow. Since we have been canceled and not able to have that, we will have it Friday morning at 9:30. Hearing on Senate Bill 294 Friday in our usual room. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson's. Senator Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Our meeting for tomorrow with Blake Flanders from the Kansas Board of Regents has been rescheduled to next Monday. I know many people don't like that, but that is being rescheduled to then. And then so on Thursday, we will be hearing from Dr. Greg Mosier of Kansas City, Kansas Community College.
Additional announcements. Seeing none, the chair recognizes Majority Leader from Johnson County, Senator Denning.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, February 6, 2020.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The Senate is adjourned.